Hi everyone, welcome to our workshop on the state of data protection law in academia. My name is Anna Chrisco. I'm a PhD researcher at Tilburg University in the Netherlands, and I'm part of the management committee of the Data Protection Law Scholars Network, the DPSN. And if you haven't heard of us before, we also had a networking event here last year, which was really nice. Basically, we're a network that aims to bring together data protection law scholars to facilitate academic exchanges and to build bridges between data protection law scholarship all around the world. And what that means in practice is that we organize a bunch of events. Our main flagship event, maybe you've been part of it, maybe you've attended, is a work in progress online event that we hold every year on International Data Protection Day in January. And this is where every time more than 30 early career and junior and senior researchers come together to present their work in a quick 5-minute format. But we also have other events, and you can see some flyers when we move over this side in a minute. We have 2 events coming up now, very soon. So we have the Publishing in an International Law Journal, the Editor's Perspective, with Christopher Kuhner. This is coming up in June. And then we have another event with our networks, Lee Bygrave and Orla Linsky, on publishing in monographs and generalist journals. This should be really interesting, in particular for early career researchers. We don't yet have registrations for that, so keep an eye on our website. You can join our mailing list. We have a mailing list. And also we have a LinkedIn group now, so you can also join this LinkedIn group. Keep in touch with other people working in data protection law. Let's talk more about this session. It's called The State of Data Protection Law Academia. And when we were thinking about this, we were reflecting that there are so many issues being discussed, many substantive issues being discussed at this conference, and we wanted to have a break from that, give everyone a break from that. And this is our attempt to begin an open conversation about some of the issues and concerns and matters that relate to our particular field, data protection law and academia. Of course, there are many issues that may come to mind, structural, many of them institutional, but what we're interested in focusing this discussion on are really those pertaining in particular to our field, data protection law. And so I have I'll give you a more detailed breakdown of what we're going to do. We're not going to sit here, and I'm not going to talk for long. So don't worry, we're still going to get up and do something interactive. So we have 5 tables. You saw on your way in, we have 5 tables, and each table has assigned a theme with an issue that came out of input to a survey that we shared with people online. I'm going to tell you what each table is about in a minute. And at these tables, these will be facilitated by one of our colleagues. They will facilitate the discussion and jot down some ideas of what's being discussed. And so we have a table for the experiences of early career researchers. We have a table for methodology-related things. We have a table for diversity, and we also have one for global perspectives. And our 5th table is an open table for any issues that don't fit within this theme. And so the idea is that we will get up, you will go to a table. We have roughly 8 minutes to discuss with the facilitator and together issues pertaining to this particular theme, what it means to you. And then after 8 minutes, each facilitator will signal that it's time to move on so that we keep the discussion going, we keep the group flowing. And after about 40 minutes, we can come back here, we sit down again, and we will ask you to reflect, how some of the issues, some of the matters that we discussed today, how these affect you as a researcher, and how can you as a researcher take up some of these things, whatever that means for you. And what we're interested in as a network is how can we as a network take up some of these issues in a community sense. And so at the end, there'll be some time maybe for some people to share their reflections with us if they so wish, but we also appreciate that these things take time to think through, so we have a Padlet online where you can anonymously give us some of your input on the personal and also on the community side. And yeah, so as I said in the beginning, this is only the beginning of a bigger conversation, right, on these issues. And of course, after the session, we plan to share with the community what we've discussed. And we're thinking of ways to continue the discussion, writing blogs, op-eds. There's so many things that we can do, and we ask you to be partners in that with us. So that's the end of the talking. Now, please feel free to get up and join a table, and after 8 minutes, we will switch. Okay?
Maybe tell what the tables are.
Sorry?
What the tables are.
Yes, they are. Go around the corner, and on the table it's written what issue this table deals with. Okay, everyone. I hope you found that interesting. Getting up, moving around, talking about some hopefully relevant and interesting issues. We're going to quickly sum up in a couple of sentences what was discussed at each of the tables. If we can, it's going to be a challenge. And then we want to invite you, as I said at the beginning, to reflect on what that means for you and your research, and what does it, how can we as a community reflect more on some of these issues? And we'll have time to ask a few of you if you want to share. So I give the floor to Maria to talk about what was discussed at her table.
Yeah, so we discussed diversity issues, broadly speaking, and that's obviously a very broad question. And I just wrote down the main points that were here, and I heard from you. I think there's definitely an issue of different social and economic backgrounds. It actually was like every round we discussed it, someone brought it up, that we have very different financial situations, and we are not necessarily talking about it because it also translates on who can get to such conferences as this one, who can afford to even speak at the conferences, and even pay for the undergrad and graduate studies to later be do academia in a higher level position. So that was the first thing that we had. I asked you whether you have diversity training at your universities, and many of you had, but you also mentioned that they are not necessarily effective, and that there is certain tendency to metrification of everything instead of actually noticing the very obvious things that are happening. And well, this quantification is one thing that necessarily has an effect on the reality. So there is definitely a lot of stuff to do here. Yeah, I move to that.
Okay. It's very hard to summarize all these ideas, so without taking any further time, I'll just briefly mention 3 things that we discussed and one maybe practical solution that we came up with. Sorry? Oh, sorry, yes. So many information, sorry. We discussed the issues of early career researchers face, and let's say, for instance, on the topic of precarity, some of the keywords came up, like finding the funds after your PhD to be able to find yourself another position. And the contracts are getting shorter. When you finish your PhD, you have to rely on like postdoc contract mostly for like 2 years or maybe even less. And job insecurities, and also the instability that is attached to all these concerns. And the second one, for instance, about the mobility issues, we discussed specifically related to data protection field. Many things are happening in Benelux countries, and especially if you're a non-EU researcher, it's sometimes hard for you to be able to come and present your work or be able to actually go other countries to hear from other researchers in and outside of Europe. And the third one could be, I summarized as nowadays most PhD positions in data protection academia relies on EU-funded positions, and in some cases you have to conduct your PhD research alongside to that funded project, and sometimes there's a big difference between those two things, and it's not really manageable to do both of them at the same time. Or you have accompanying educational and administrative tasks, which sometimes exceeds what is actually been written in the contract, your employment contract. So these are some of the issues that many more have been addressed, and I'll do my best to summarize all, not now, but one of the, for instance, useful suggestions, I might put it in that way, came as that we have, for instance, the LinkedIn group, and we can use this network to facilitate some things. Like, for instance, regarding the mobility issues, one of the participants, I'm sorry that I can't see you here, but like suggested, for instance, we can say, hey, I have a free room and we have this conference, and if anyone is interested can like stay at my place. Or it could be the opposite, like, hey, I'm going to this conference, I still couldn't find a room or something like that. Could any one of you would help me here? And that network is only open to the community, so we hope that there will be no scammers or something. So we will, like, that was just an idea, and I think that with this I can pass the floor to Stephanie now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we had quite a great and diverse discussion at my table, where we discussed likely everything. So I took so many notes, and I will go through my notes in more detail later on. But some points struck out, and to sum up, a kind of, yeah, let's say a level of frustration is there in some areas, but the love for research and data protection is there. But yeah, first of all, it was mentioned quite a few times that as a young researcher, we somehow feel alone in our research. So kind of it's quite difficult to network, to go, to find the right, let's say, people to talk to, the publications you need, etc. And that academics often face quite a heavy workload. It's teaching included, the research, and of course the administrative duties, and not to. And we shouldn't forget the publishing requirements and all the deadlines facing as a researcher. So all in all, we're facing quite unique challenges. And of course, the publish or peerish culture can create a culture where quantity, where we focus more on quantity than quality. And the last comment I want to make, it's really difficult to put everything, every note in 1 or 2 minutes, but somehow in one of the discussions that mentioned quite often that we, as young researchers, or as researcher or academia, in general, we should take back the control and not give the stage to the big players, like it's happened at the CPDP as well. So, and that's, with these last words, I'm giving you the floor.
Okay. Hello, everyone. At my table, we discussed about a global perspective. As you know, the aims of the network is to promote the connection among data protection law scholars. So we thought about, and we want to hear about your experience. And I wrote down some notes. And for instance, for the English, English is it's not like a limit, but also an advantage if you think about the possibility to have a lot of content that you can access, but also it's a limit when you think about different countries where there are a very, very, very good scholar in data protection, like in German, some people say, and in other countries. No, I agree with that, but I don't know German, so this is a limit for me. For instance, for me, it's a limit. And also, the difference in culture, in your habit, because this can influence the way you work when you go to the university. For instance, you in your own country, maybe you used to, let's say, to grab a beer with your supervisor, and you go in another country and it's more formal, and this could be a limit, but this is only a difference, and is in your own perspective how you can handle this difference. But it is so. And also the open access. We talk about the open access as a limit because, of course, the university have to pay for publishing in open access, but it also a chance for the university or the researcher that they haven't the money or the university hasn't the agreement with the journal to go and read this particular paper you want to read. And also, we discussed about bias because we are biased by the EU perspective, let's say. Because of this, we don't go to USA or Chinese or Brazilian journal, so this could be also, let's say, a limit. And yes, and it's all from me. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, last but not least, methodology at 6:30. So we discussed a lot of things. There seems to be a lot of multidisciplinary projects where lawyers collaborate with computer scientists, with people from different disciplines, and at the same time, we also talked about interdisciplinarity, and some people expressing the opinion that it's at this point a bit inevitable in data protection law scholarship to not include in some systematic way perspectives and disciplines from outside the law within your research. And then we talked mostly about some of the challenges that come from either being in a multidisciplinary project or doing interdisciplinary research. And one recurring theme was this idea of a common knowledge and a common ground being more important than do we understand each other on methodological grounds, but more do we have a shared understanding of and a shared concept, shared understanding of the things that we are working on, which I found quite interesting. So maybe not so much a focus on the methodology, but on how to collaborate and develop that common language with the people that you work with as part of, let's say, a multidisciplinary project. Some people brought up doing empirical research, which I do myself, and it was nice to hear that more are doing it. And then we talked about the challenges that come from being in a law department, not having the support and not having the training maybe to carry this out. So then you're kind of on your own doing your thing, and it can be complicated. And to kind of wrap things up, we were also talking about what implications for maybe publication or who is the audience of your work when you are doing an interdisciplinary research and you have to minimize the depth in which maybe you are going into both, however many you want to integrate, and then who is actually your audience if that's so. So this is what we talked about. So now I want to ask you to reflect on we are interested in the community side, but also personally, and you don't have to share here, but on the tables, on your way, we put these flyers where we have this QR code that you can scan, and it goes to our Padlet. And we appreciate that. It's been a long day, and probably now I don't know who. I would really appreciate some volunteer who wants to share. What are some of their reflections personally? What do we as a community need to? How do we take up these issues? But we also appreciate your input on paper and online, and we'll feed back to the community how this has, the outcome of this whole conversation and how we're going to move forward. So. Is anyone interested in volunteering in sharing some of their reflections about the discussions they've had around the table? Yeah. Please write on the Padlet. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us in this different format. It was really good to see so many of you here, also a lot of early career researchers like ourselves. So thank you so much. And we hope to see you in the next day at CPDP again. Thank you.
Anna, also, since this is based on the network, and we would like to do the networking, and that's why we're going to benefit from the official cocktails now. So feel free to stay along and join our LinkedIn group, or just follow our hashtags for the upcoming events. We would really appreciate to see you in the future events that we'll be organizing as well. So thank you.